It ain't no joke. Japan is literally on the verge of collapse. They only had, I think the number is 800,000 babies last year. Now that to me is just nuts. How is that possible? 800,000. That's crazy. Fumio Kishida said it was a case of now or never. Japan's prime minister says his country is on the brink of not being able to function as a society because of its falling birth rate. Birth rates are slowing in many countries, including Japan's neighbors, but the issue is particularly acute in Japan, as life expectancy has risen in recent decades, meaning there are a growing number of older people and a declining number of workers to support them. Oh, man. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to see a whole bunch of 60, 70-year-olds unable to work, needing some kind of social assistance, and there ain't going to be any kids. So there ain't going to be anyone doing the work. You ready, America? It's coming here. All these childless cat ladies and woke bros, they're going to be 60, 70 with no kids, and they're going to be going to the government. Yeah, the government should be giving me money. I'm an old man. And the government's going to be like, we're old men too, and there's no one working. That's going to be reality. You know, I'm watching that show, Last of Us. I'm familiar with the video game. I never played it. It's not, like this, part 2, I guess, was like, did stupid wokeness, but the first one's apparently like a masterpiece or something like that. Anyway, the show's pretty good. There's 2 episodes, I think. And anyway, I bring it up because it's this new show. It's post-apocalyptic. If you're not familiar with it, basically the cordyceps fungus evolves to survive within humans, and then humans start getting infected, basically become zombies, and then bite you, and then you become infected with the fungus. But anyway, 20 years goes by, civilization is destroyed, skyscrapers are falling over, and there's zombies all over the place. Mostly collapsed. And it's funny because I'm watching this show thinking to myself, like, what would cause that post-apocalyptic scenario? And then it's like, it's not going to be zombies. It's not going to be World War III. To throw it to our good friend Albert Einstein, I think, who said, I know not what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Now, you know, that quote was particularly apt at the time. We're talking about the atomic bomb. We're talking about the invention of nuclear explosions, radioactive waste, nuclear winter fallout, the end of days. And so this quote represents, after we go to war in World War III and blow each other to smithereens, the next war we're going to fight is going to be throwing rocks at each other. It's funny. It's funny because it's still true, despite the fact it's true in a very different way. I don't know what weapons World War III will be fought with. I think it'll probably be drones, social media, and psychological manipulation. But I'll tell you this, World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones because of population collapse. You ain't going to have nuclear weapons if you don't have people who can build every component required. A dude could barely build a toaster on his own. When population collapse happens, it's going to be interesting. So I went to the horse track this weekend. I had a blast. Normally, I bet on the goofy ones, you know, the crazy names. This time, I bet 3 races, all in the favorites. All the favorites won. It was great. I won like $100. It was awesome. It was more fun to watch your horse come around and then go, yeah, horses, over at Charlestown Racetrack in West Virginia. And but I bring this up because there's no restaurant. There used to be a concession stand. You'd go hang out, you get a hot dog, you get sandwiches, or there was a restaurant, you could eat, there's food, and you're watching the horse races. Man, that sounds like a blast. But the restaurant's closed. They said, apparently, I don't know if it's true because I haven't talked to any employees, but they've been trying to reopen the restaurant, but they can't find any employees. There's a viral video now of some guy jumping up on a counter, ripping his clothes off and being like, I quit. And he's like wearing a bra and panties or something. People don't want to work. And there's just not enough workers to maintain the system we all know and remember. So here's the vision of the future I see. It's possible the future is conservative. I think it's extremely likely the future will be very conservative. If we do enter any kind of post-apocalyptic scenario with abandoned buildings and overgrowth, quarantine zones, it's not going to be because of COVID. It's not going to be because of cordyceps or the T virus or whatever. It's going to be because this area was reclaimed by nature and abandoned. And it's a quarantine zone because this area, there's not enough police to sustain safety, and to control the wild animal population. In The Last of Us, they're in the Boston quarantine zone. And it's like a military dictatorship, basically, because humans are struggling to survive. I get that. And then outside, it's chaos. There's zombies, there's scavengers, there's banditos, there's slavers, etc. It'll be like that in the future. I mean, 800,000 is insanely low. A population of 125 million. They only had 800 million babies? That's crazy. I mean, you should at least expect that you're going to get 30 million babies. No, nothing. And I'm saying 30 million because the population, you cut off half the population for kids. Now you got 65 million. Then you cut that in half because 2 people makes 1 baby. And that's a perfect birth rate. So crap, like even 5 million? Not even 1 million babies were born. So here's what I wonder. 20 years. What happens? How many people will be in Japan? So let's say in 20 years, the elderly all die off. There's 125 million right now. They have an aging population. Let's put the estimate at like 40 million people are within 20 years of death. So you got like 80 million. But they're only having 800,000 per year. So that means within 20 years, you get 800,000. We're looking at, I'm not going to be able to do the math fast enough. You're looking at 16 million people in 20 years. So you're going to go down in 20 years from 125 million to, let's just call it 100 million. Let's say 40 million go down, you get 85, and you add 16. We're looking at 101 million. But during those 20 years, the population will continue to decline. There's going to be accidental deaths. There's going to be disease-related deaths. With the decline in population, there's going to be a crisis of maintaining these systems. As we fail to maintain these systems, there will be a further decrease in population. Right now, we have crap tons of farms. Can't find anybody to work. Farm produces less food. Less food, it's a downward spiral, my friends. It is the collapse, not because of a meteor strike, not because of World War III, not zombies, not a tsunami, not an alien invasion. It is the end of days due to the limitations of human economics and growth. And then what happens? I don't know, to be honest. Maybe the population falls down over the span of 50 years to about 1 billion people. Maybe it falls back to 500 million. Maybe it's all intentional. Certainly think there are powerful interests that don't want there to be more humans. But these countries are panicking over it. So I can't really say for sure. Japan is freaking out, saying they're on the brink of collapse. And the reason is that 40 million, let's say there's 20 million elderly who can't work at all. They're only alive right now because the system takes from the young to give to the old. I'm fine with that to a certain degree. You know, young people work really hard. And then when you get older, you say, look, I worked really hard to support the system. I now ask that you do something similar for me. You have kids. Your kids take care of you. Now, the problem, I suppose, is the state replaced the family. And now it's all going to come crumbling down because people with no kids are incentivized. There's no reason to have kids. There's another big component. It used to be you had kids because you had to have kids. You needed the help. You're going to get old, and someone's got to take care of you. And then when they get old, they do the same. Their kids do the same for them. But then we said, don't worry, the state will do it. All that really meant was that the government would go to other kids and take from them to give to the elder people. So a lot of these people started saying, I don't got to have kids. There's no reason. If I'm older, I'll just get government assistance. The government assistance was just extracting from young people. So what happens next? In the next couple of generations, it's going to get really interesting. Factories will be abandoned. Products will no longer be made. And it's going to be like, I'm watching in The Last of Us, Ellie has like a book, Billboard songs, and she's like, she was born after the collapse. It's a really interesting thought. Thinking about what it must be like between these two people. You've got one guy, Joel, he was in his 30s. He was 36 when the collapse happened, if you watch the show. And so he lived a normal life like we all do. Cell phones, work, jobs, cars, gas, flying on planes. Collapse happens. 4 years later, Ellie's born, and she never experienced life before the collapse. No internet, no cell phones, none of that stuff. No going to the shopping mall. The whole world is just in decay. This person won't know what these luxuries are, and they won't seek them. And this is what you need to understand about population collapse. A 20-year-old kid who has never seen the inside of an airplane, will not want for something he doesn't know or care about. You as the older person will be like, if these kids would only work on this, we could get air travel back. Of course, the older generation does dictate to a certain degree, but young people will not be interested in the same things. They won't be interested in things they've never heard of or seen. Now, of course, they'll know planes existed. Some will be passionate. Some kids like classic rock. Some kids like, Victorian era music, whatever, but most kids don't. Most kids go with the trends. So when the population breaks, you're going to have a bunch of young people who are going to be like, I think farming is so cool because they have to. They don't farm, they die. And then you're going to say, we used to be able to get from New York to London in only a couple hours. I mean, it's like 4 or 5. Isn't that crazy? Now it's 3 months. We still have the technology, but the planes are only going to be used by like powerful government officials. That's where we're headed. It's going to be very, very difficult to maintain this system. It's a scary thought. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Check it out, youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Steven Crowder will be joining. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all there.